So Journal Jam is basically a session in which we grab my little treasure box of prompts and we pull them, do what the prompts say, and see what happens. So sometimes you get a nightmare and sometimes you get something really beautiful. But I have been finding that I have been really enjoying the things that I make. Let's show you. This was not a journal jam. This was a journal jam. Isn't that gorgeous? So we did this during journal jam, and then we also broke out one of my favorite art journals, which I've been working in for years now. And we did this, and this was our last journal jam. It's not complete yet. It doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. So I'm just sort of sitting with it until I have a better idea of what it wants to be. Other than that, there are no rules. You just play as you prefer to play, or you obey the prompts. You will notice that we have prompt 1 and then 1.5, prompt 3 and then 3.5, because I get impulses. And even though I am following the prompts, I will also obey the impulses. Sometimes I'm doing something and something else suggests itself. So that's where you'll notice the 1.5 prompts popping up in the list of prompts. List of prompts is included with the replays on YouTube. I also send it out to Patreon, which if you are not a member of, what are you waiting for? Patreon is awesome and amazing, and also really integral to income streams for folks like us who work from home and have no other source of income, which describes me. This is it. This is what I do for a living. I am on Patreon at patreon.com/Effy and there are tiers that vary from $2 all the way to $10. I'm thinking about adding a $20 tier at some point, which will include a private Zoom art party, which I think people will really enjoy. So Journal Jam, that's it. But it's been suggested to me several times now that I should do my journal jams, because look, sometimes what happens is I'm feeling around and some of these are bigger than others, and I know what that is, so I can cheat. So if I don't want to do this one, make some mud, like when will I ever actually choose this one on purpose? I will never choose this one on purpose, right? So what I've got here are a couple of flashcard sets. So this one is a really nice size and it has these little craft covers. And then this one is a larger size and it has this glittery cover and this enclosure. This one is plain and this one is lined. I believe I got this one at Staples, if I'm not mistaken. But if you search for glittery flashcards, I'm sure you'll find glittery flashcards. And this one, I believe I ordered on Amazon. I think I intended one year to do a iCAD, which is run by Daisy Yellow, I think is her moniker. But then I never did it. So what I'm thinking about doing is turning these into my prompt cards. And then when I come to Journal Jam, I can just take them out of their ring binder and shuffle them like tarot. Let's say we're going to do that next week. Does that sound good to you guys? And even if you don't have flashcards, loves, you can just use some watercolor paper and cut it to size. Just cut it to size. And then the nice thing is this actually will fit in my treasure box. So I don't have to give up my treasure box. I can still use my treasure box, which makes me extraordinarily happy. If they fit right in there, like they just nest right in there. Yay. All right, so that's our project for next week. So if you want to hang out with me and do this project next week, then join me here. I'm going to do mine on some just scrapbook paper. I think that would be really pretty. And then do some lettering. So you will get a lettering lesson out of this. Of course, obviously, I'm, limited in size, so you won't get a whole lot of different fonts, but I'll do a couple of my favorite fonts, and you guys will get to see how practicing like that gets you really good at lettering. So that is my announcement for next week. Of course, that is contingent on whether or not I can join you. We live in uncertain times. I'm being very careful with my energy. Because it's exhausting being in quarantine. I will say that. So if I can't make it, or if I have to delay it or whatever, I will let you know. I wanted to take a moment before we begin, though, to light a candle for those souls in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is near and dear to my heart. I lived there for several years, and I love the province of Nova Scotia. And we had the worst mass shooting in Canada ever in our history in Nova Scotia over the last 2 days. We don't experience this here on the regular basis, so it's quite shocking, and I'm still recovering. So I have lit a candle for the souls in Nova Scotia, all of whom will be hit by this, and anyone else who is hit by this or feeling this or experiencing pain as a result of this. So this candle is lit for you. All of the energy that I expend during today's journal jam is being sent as healing toward those in Nova Scotia who have experienced this terrible tragedy. And I can't talk about it anymore because I will legit break down and cry. I have here one of the art journals that was made for me by my friend Gu Guarino. This is the second. I bought 2 from her, and this is the second one. I've just recently filled the first one, and this cover decoration was featured as a bonus in one of the Journal Jam replays, so you can go back and find that. The paper is a very smooth paper. It's Stonehenge paper, which is not a paper I generally work with. I usually work with the Canson XL paper. It requires that I be careful about what I'm throwing at it, because it can start to pill up a bit if I'm not careful. So I am mindful of that even when I'm journal jamming. I've got everything set up. I've got my Waterloo Dark beer, which is delicious. I've got my iPhone. I've got my headphones, so we can fire up a playlist. So, hello. Let's journal jam. Open the tickle trunk. This one popped out, so let's grab it. Add some doodles. So that is journal jam number 1. Add some doodles. So let's set that aside. And I think I'm going to do my doodles in something water-based. Yes. So like this. So I'm actually going to close my eyes and shuffle my markers and pick one. Oh, what a lovely color. I'm glad I did that. So these are Ecoline brush pens. This is a watercolor, liquid watercolor in a marker form. So I'm going to doodle. What should I doodle? What should I doodle? Like when I doodle, usually my first instinct is like a rose. But of course I never doodle roses in blue marker. That just never happens. So journal jam prompt number 1, doodle. Yeah, and I did this randomly too, Edith. I shuffled my markers like you would cards with my eyes closed and just picked one. And it wants to be blue. you know, it could be because there is some blueness in the world right now. Carrie, I'm so glad you were able to make it this time. And could I get someone to look out for Dale, please? Dale Louise. She always has trouble finding these. She may be posting in Moonshine or in the Wilder HUD looking for some guidance as to how to find us. Is that my dogs? No, that's outside. There's a little dog that lives next door that they put on a tie-out lead and leave out there. Not for long, it's not abusive or anything. But he's a yappy little Shih Tzu. And his yap is almost exactly the same as Sookie's. The first time I heard it, I was like, is Sookie outside? Like, did she get outside? What's going on? Where is my dog? So... And the nice thing about starting with a medium like this is you have a choice. You can either activate it if you like. There are a bunch of different ways to activate these things. You could activate it with some matte medium or iridescent medium. You could activate it with acrylic paint. You could activate it with just water. Or you can choose not to activate it at all and just start painting over it, in which case you'll get some random thing that happens to these flowers. Some of the pigment will sink into the paper, but lots won't. Or you can put some workable fixative on the spread if you like, in order to preserve your initial doodles. So my first doodle desire here was roses. Spring is springing. Makes sense to me. It took me a long time to figure out how to make a rose. I think I watched 50 million YouTube videos, and this is just a standard shape that I make in my journals. I always like to hang some off the edge, otherwise it just looks weird, right? It looks like this weird grouping of things in the center, and it doesn't make sense. When you're working with patterning in a background, you want to think about what it would look like on wrapping paper or a fabric. You know, you would have these edges where the fabric was cut. That's very much how I look at my journal page, especially when we're talking backgrounds. So you want to hang them off the edge. Make sure that you have some that are incomplete. Otherwise, everything just crowds into the center of the spread and looks weird. This is going to be a very rosy journal spread, guys, because I just feel compelled to fill the whole spread with these roses. I like it when it gets really quiet in the watch party because it tells me that you guys are arting along. I used to feel like it was because you guys were bored, but then I realized, no, actually, that means they're doing something. While we're sitting here, they're actually doing something. Maybe not a journal jam, but maybe they're just flinging some paint. So that makes me happy. Bobcat Goldweight. That's a mad. That's hilarious. And when you make sure when you're doing these bouquets of roses that you center, that you start your rose in the center with a bud, it does create a bouquet look. If you don't do them that way, it doesn't look like a bouquet. It just looks like random wavy lines. Because these are so expressive, these roses. They really need something to scream rose. So that's why I always include that little bud in the center there. Now I'm doing these really fast, of course, because I've been doing these like this for years. But if you need to slow down, slow down. There's no hurry. We be journal jamming. There's no hurry. Hi, Kai. Kai. I know you told me once how to pronounce her name, but I've since forgotten. I mean, this is more action than I've gotten since March 17th. So, you know, whatever I got to do to entertain myself, I'm going to do. And that includes drinking, swearing, singing, putting on lipstick. Kai, there we go. I had it right the first time. I chase you around like a bit of fool. Make sure I get my corner down there as well. And the morning comes too soon, 'cause I am the moon. I want to find the ukulele tab for this song. It's so pretty. All right, so that was Doodle. So journal jam number 1 was Doodle. Journal jam number 2 is flip spread upside down. This is a good time for that. There's not a whole lot going on, but I will have to be mindful that this is the wrong way. Although there's no such thing in your art journal, no such thing as the wrong way. So flip your spread upside down is journal jam number 2, and then journal jam number 3. Add book text. This makes me ridiculously happy. This is something I really enjoy doing. Journal jam number 3, add book text. So I'm going to fish around in this drawer here where I keep my copy of The Golden Bough by James Fraser, because I am an art witch. So of course I use The Golden Bough by James Fraser. And I'm going to use some gloss polymer medium from Try Art. For those of you that don't know, Try Art is a Canadian company that makes products that are very comparable to Golden. For example, these are their fluid acrylics. So I'm going to add book text. So one thing I like to do is just sort of scan. I'm going to take these off now, because if I'm using the gloss polymer, I don't want to get that all over my fingerless gloves. So the first thing I'll do is kind of scan it. See if anything pops out at me. Ooh, that's a nice one. So just do not forget our messages. Love you much. And our children will never forget you. That's lovely. So I'm just outlining that with a Pigma Micron. This is a 0.1, so it's nice and thin. This may not actually make it into the spread, but it doesn't matter. It's seeding my subconscious. It's giving me stuff to sort of noodle about. O thou divine one, thou wast sent into the world for us to hunt. It's a blessing on a creature that you may hunt for food. Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah, it seeds your subconscious. You know, you scan the page. That's why I like using books that have some sort of value to me, some sort of emotional attachment. Outlander is one. Golden Bough, Untie the Strong Woman, Women Who Run with the Wolves. You can get them in paperback. Ooh. I tell you, it cannot die. Will only change houses tomorrow. That's really neat. That's about the eternal nature of the soul. So I think that's enough of that. And then I like to rip, remembering now that this spread is presently upside down. What I neglected to put on that prompt is that you flip it, and then when you're done the next prompt, you flip it again. But that didn't make it on that prompt. Let's do this. How many sheets do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want 9. This is upside down. Doesn't really matter either if your text is upside down on the page. It's just something that sometimes I feel inspired aesthetically to make sure that the text is actually right side up, but that's totally not necessary. This is all very symmetrical looking. What if I crossed this like this? That makes an interesting sort of dynamic shape. And then I'll do this and this. There. My favorite part of a journal jam. I get to draw my piece while smoking a cigarette and drinking beer. I'm going to use my heavy duty heat gun. It's loud and annoying. I apologize. All right, while I'm drawing this, I'll pull another prompt for those of you who are waiting for one. Mix your own color. All right, well, I have this magenta here on the page, or on the desk. This is the Tri-Art Fluid Acrylic. Very comparable to golden fluid acrylics. Really, really beautiful artist quality pigments, very heavily pigmented. And I think I'm going to make like a purple, and I'm going to add some phthalo blue green shade. We'll see what we get out of it. This is a golden fluid acrylic. And let's see what happens, because the next prompt is mix your own color. So anyone who's been with me for any length of time knows that I love to glaze things. So I'll layer and glaze and layer and glaze and glaze and layer and glaze and layer and glaze. And that's something I really enjoy doing. I'm also definitely going to need a palette paper, because that's a lot of paint, and I feel like this is perfect. I don't like to waste paint. These are very opaque. Sorry, very transparent. Very transparent. So I'm going to go over what I've done already. And I think I'm going to move really quickly so I can do a stencil resist. So that will be 4.2. So let's do this really fast. I did turn this, yes I did. So a glaze is a transparent layer of paint. You can do this with glazing medium or glazing liquid or just water, but keep your ratio of water to acrylic quite low. So you want to cut it no more than 30%, or you lose the binder that keeps the pigment together, and then your paint will just flake everywhere. I want to really keep this wet because I need this to stay wet for my stencil resist. always comes. Follow the track of my needle. Oh, dogs are freaking. James! Guys, just give me a sec. Hopefully I didn't lose the ability to do a stencil resist. Oh, I'm all out of breath now. All right. Now I don't like this streaky look. So here's a little trick. Just softly, very softly. I keep a brush just for this purpose. This is my softly gently brush. Softly gently. And vary the direction. So softly gently. See the difference that makes? It's just so much prettier. It also has the added benefit of just picking up the excess, right? So you don't have puddles of paint happening on here. So it was mix your own color, which I then used to glaze. So that was 0.5, and then reverse stencil resist, which is just an impulse. So I have this lovely circle stencil. I'm going to grab a baby white. And I'm going to pull the pigment up through the stencil. And you can do this all over, or you can just do this in one or two places. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to do it all over and then decide, once I've done that, if there are areas that I want to push back again with more glaze. So if you do it all over, it just gives you more options. Before you attempt this, you want to wring out your baby wipe, because if your baby wipe is really sodden and soaked, then it will make a juicy kind of mess. And this needs to be dried. So while this is drying, I will pull another prompt. It's just not going to happen. Add overlapping circles. So let us add some overlapping circles now that we've done our glaze. Oh, wait, no. That's right. Cover something up. So we're covering something up first. So cover something up. So what should we cover with? What if I cover with a crow? Yeah, I'm doing it now. Cover something up. So I'll cover up the background because we really don't have anything going on right now. There's no focal images. There's nothing really. Going on here. So I'm just going to throw this stencil in. This is a strumpet stencil. Sarah Trump, my platonic life partner, who I love to death, makes these stencils, and I adore them. The trick to stenciling and getting a pretty good stenciled impression is to use very little paint. Voila, isn't that lovely? And then what if I did And that will cover up some of this background as well. This, I believe, is also Sarah Trump, Joy. That's gorgeous. 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 This is an impulse. So because we have this branch here that is weirdly not attached to anything, we're going to attach the branch to the edge of the page, just using the same carbon black paint. I like the idea of the branch kind of swooping out to meet the labyrinth a little bit here. I suck at trees, but I always find them such a pleasure to paint. So this is an impulse. I don't know what to call this impulse. Join your cover-ups with a tree. I'm going to want more branches than just that, because that would look weird. So I'll bring that one up like that, and this one up like this, and that one up like that, and so on and so forth. And I may end up hating this, but that's okay. That's what Journal Jam is for. Get out of your comfort zone. Figure out what you're doing as you go. They can't all be perfect. But I am starting to feel really tired. So and I tucked this branch behind the labyrinth. And all I did was take my paintbrush and sort of eyeball where it would come out. I'm going to crisscross some of these branches as they would be in nature. You don't want them all separate. This was definitely an impulsive move here, but I like it. So I kind of want like Birdie to have like a bit of a bower. So I'm going to extend some of these branches up and around the bird like this, just keeping it really loose and expressive. I can't get too fussy about stuff like this. Or my trees end up looking really weird. I mean, they look weird anyway, but make sure you're varying the direction your branches are taking. Trees don't tend to have branches that are all growing in the same direction. They kind of dance with each other for the best access to sunlight. So you'll have some that are reaching up and some that are reaching to the side. But what do I know? I'm not really a tree painter. This is making me ridiculously happy. So we can assume that there's a branch that's coming in from up this area. So now we have branches everywhere. And that is just so good. So good. And I like this curve here. And we've got this negative space around the bird. That's doing it for me. I'm all right with this. All right. Yeah, my impulse moves I feel like are like the point. The impulse is the point, you know? You start with journal jam, and then you start to obey your every impulse, and those are what really makes the piece, because you're being informed by something random to do something intentional, and it's that combination of things, I think, that creates a really good journal spread. You've got a little bit of randomness that's out of your control. It's like the universe communicating with you, and then you have your own impulse and response. I think that makes a really good journal jam. So I'm just going to dry this and then see what I'm feeling like. We did pull another prompt, and the other prompt was overlapping circles, and I feel like I don't want to do that. So Myrna, you can add that to the list, but I am now intending with this journal piece, even though I said like I don't feel like we're going to get a finished piece out of this, I feel like actually this took it somewhere that I'm really happy about. So I'm going to dry it and then see what else wants to happen, but no more prompts. I think this is the most prompts we've ever used to get to this point. And just so you guys know, some jams will be longer than others. Like sometimes I'll be able to come for an hour and a half. Sometimes I'll be able to come for 3 hours. It depends on my energy. I know what to do for overlapping circles. I know what to do. Check out this move, guys. You're going to be mind blown at what I do next. So I'm actually lining the circle up so that it's on, like directly on top of the labyrinth. Do I have another deer foot? Yes, I do. Awesome. So I'm going to do it in black first. That's true, but I had an impulse. You know me, obeying every impulse. So I'm going to do a little portal here. And then I want to make sure that I wipe this off because this is a brand new template and I'm trying to take care of it. Just gonna wipe this off. And I'm also going to use it again in a moment, so give that a really good dry. All right, and then I'm going to grab some silver paint. We're cooking with gas now. And I want to be a little bit careful with this application of silver paint. So I'm going to use a makeup sponge. Same circle. And I'm going to overlap it. But I'm only going to overlap to where the black is so that we create a crescent. So you got to be careful. You're going just to the edge. And then you can come back in with a paintbrush and do the outer edge of the circle. Oh, no, you don't have to do that, actually. If you're smart, and I am, you'll do the crescent part like that. Did I get that all the way to the bottom? No, I didn't. I've got to get right to the bottom there. Right to this edge and right to this edge. Just slide that over a little bit like that. And you've created a new moon crescent. And then you can refine that, right? So grab your paintbrush, a nice fine paintbrush, and refine it. And that was a total genius move. I don't know why I flipped it like that. It didn't need to be flipped. I was just trying to find the best vantage point at which to come at this shape. That was a genius move. I'm so impressed with myself right now. Oh yeah, baby. I love it when a thing works out. All right, and since I have this silver paint on my palette, I'm going to grab a nice round brush, a nice fine round brush, and I'm going to make it a little bit of an inky silver. And I'm going to bring some refinement into my bird. My burb. The burby. And it's often really nice to have this just be a nice broken stroke. It doesn't need to be a perfect stroke. That is the trunk. You can also like make your bird a little skinnier this way if you like. Not that I like a skinny bird, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes when you stencil, things go a little thicker than you like them. So this will let you create like a nice delicate looking bird. Maybe this is more grackle than crow, which is fine with me because I love grackles. And then I'm going to go like this. And I'm just going to illuminate around the bird, being mindful of where my branches are. You want to move pretty quick here because what you don't want to do is have like hard lines where you're doing this. You want everything to be really gradiated to create this glow. So I'm just creating a bit of a glow. Pop it right up off the page and just say, hey, Barbie. Hey, Barbie. Like it's got an aura. Like our burb has an aura. Love me a Barbie. Pop. Just like that. Whoops. Oops. Oopsie. There's something about metallics paints that always make me feel like we've enchanted a thing. And then let's get some silver in here, light up the tail feathers a little bit. You can go back in with black paint if you need to. And then let me see if I have an appropriate sized eyeball for this baby. I think this might be just right. I think I'm going to stencil this with my finger because it's just going to require the barest hit of paint. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. No, that's not taking. Both my deerfoots are wet or are like in water right now, so I'm going to use one of my scrubby brushes that I use to shade faces. And that's pretty messy, but I can fix that, so it's not a problem. So we have our glowy little birdie. A couple of areas here where the silver got a little bit out of control, so I'm just going to tidy that up. So let's just tidy up here. I want to make sure that there's an outline over here. Actually, I made the mistake of bringing that glow right into the tree. And I don't want that. I just want there to be a fine little silver outline there where the bird is perching. Just like that. And just a note to beginners, this is why you want good brushes, because a good brush is going to let you come in and make nice, crisp, fine lines, whereas the shitty brushes that you buy, they fray so fast that you can't get a nice, crisp line. So sometimes the issue is not that you can't do it. The issue is that your brush won't let you, and that is a massive difference in experience. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of that silver back here. There we go. And then I'm going to do my Burby's eyes. So if you're not comfortable using paint and a brush for this kind of detail, please feel free to grab a pen. But I'm not doing too much here. I'm really just putting in a pupil and then making the eyebrow just a little less thick. Perfect little Burby eye. I love it when animals have human eyes. You know what I'm saying? There's something about that that really pleases me. And then I'm just going to really like increase that glow by scrubbing in more silver, coming right up in against my Burby. So it's almost like it's manifested, like it's just broken in through from another dimension altogether, and all this light is the energy that it brought with it. At least that's how I'm thinking of it. And because it's my painting, I'm allowed to think of it anything I like. That is the way it works. It is your fantasy life. You do you. Oh, shaky hands are shaky. I'm just going to sort of cradle my hand here a little bit. And of course my pen picks now not to work while I'm struggling with shaky hands. There, a little bit of light in the eye. No, that's good enough. I'm not going to faff with it. No faffing allowed. It's Journal Jam. All right. I'm going to grab myself a silver pen. And I'm going to add some light to my trees. Again, this is the point at which we're tending. So light to the trees. I'm just going to pick a direction. So this is how I cheat with where is the light coming from. I don't care. I just pick a direction, and then that's the one direction. So I'm just going to put it on top like this and light these up like this. So it'll all go on top. And this is an Effy version of a tree. Very expressive trees that look like a kindergartner could do them. They make me happy, so that's what matters. Dogs are starting to whine, guys, which means I'm going to have to wrap it up. I have to crate them when I do these because Salem is a little destructo monster. She will chew the shit out of everything. I caught her chewing my chair last week because she is still just a puppy, I keep reminding myself. So just adding a little bit of glow to the tree, a little bit of light, almost as though the sun is, or the moon is glinting off a bit of moisture. Maybe the night's dew has fallen and it's catching the moisture on the trees. And that just gives it a little bit more of a sense of dimension as well. It's not just this flat black. A little bit more interesting than that flat black. And I don't think this even needs words at this point. It just feels like a little visit into the realm of fantasy. Of course, you can go as far as you want with this. You can, you know, come into this and add more if you want. Add words if you want. Voila. Journal Jam number 5. We did it. You could go further, obviously, with this thing, but we've been here now for almost 2 hours. So I'm going to wrap it up. I may come back in, I don't know, but as usual, if I do come back in, I'll show you. But I make no promises about coming back in to these spreads. If I feel like it, I will. I wish I'd filmed this, you guys. This is one of the most beautiful figures I've ever made. I love her. But that's it. Journal Jam for Monday, April 20th, 2020. You know what? This bird wants a portal. I'm afraid now to ruin it. I'm terrified right now. Terrified. But this bird wants a portal. So here's what I'm going to do. With much trepidation, happiness. As though it popped in from space. How perfect is that? That was perfect. So I can't believe we went from, I have no idea, to this. How did that happen? It's a miracle. Love you guys. Thanks so much for being here. See you next week. Bye.